This is the lecture for section 4A, which is taking control of your finances. The following are ways that you can work to control your finances. Know your bank balance. Avoid bouncing a check or having a debit card rejected. Know what you spend, in particular, keeping track of debit and credit card spending. Don't buy on impulse. Think first and buy only if the purchase makes sense. And making a budget and make sure that you don't spend over that budget. Suppose you spend $25 a week on coffee and $150 a month on fast food. Over the course of a year, do you spend more money on coffee or food? Well, let's start with coffee. We spend $25 a week on coffee, and there are 52 weeks in a year. So if I multiply 25 times 52, I'm spending $1,300 on coffee. And then we can do the same with fast food. But fast food is given to us in how much we spend a month. So $150 a month, and there are 12 months in a year. So we're going to multiply this one by 12. 150 times 12 is going to give me $1,800. So we spent more money on fast food. Next example. A friend spends $17 a week on lottery tickets. Rent is $600 a month. How many months of rent could she have paid if she didn't buy any lottery tickets? Well, let's start with how much she spends. So she spends $17 a week. And I'm going to times that by how many weeks there are in a year, so 52. In the course of a year, she spends $884 on lottery tickets. Well, we know rent is $600 a month. So if she spent $884, we clearly spent over a month's rent. So what we can do is we can actually divide this by 600, and we are just about 1.5. So her lottery ticket spending is about 1.5 months of rent. Being able to look at these values, know these values, and know how much you spend a month, a week, or in a year is very beneficial for you as a person. Cassidy has begun keeping her spending under better control, but she still can't fully pay off her credit card balance. She maintains an average monthly balance of about $1,100, and her card charges 24% annual interest, which is billed at a rate of 2% per month. How much is she spending on credit card interest? So first thing I want to know here, credit card interest is always very, very high. You can see here this is 24% across the year. This 2% comes from 24 divided by 12, 2% per month. How much is she spending on credit card interest? Well, we worked with percentages, and to find 2% of your balance, you're going to take 0.02 times the balance of 1,100. She's paying $22 a month in interest. If we multiply that by 12 months in a year, the annual interest that she's paying, 12 times 22, is $264. Interest alone is costing Cassidy more than $260 per year, which is a lot of money if you are on a tight budget. These are real life things. You do not want to carry over a credit card balance. You end up spending a whole lot on interest, spending above and beyond what you actually spent, and you lose money that you could be using for something else. So the next thing we're going to look at is how you can do a budget making process. First thing you're going to do is determine your average monthly income. So all money that is coming in to you. And we may have things you get twice a year, once a year, and we're going to break it down into how much we get per month. We're then going to determine my average monthly expenses. So anything that you spend money on, recurring expenses, insurance, anything extra that you're spending should be put in here. We will then determine the net monthly cash flow by subtracting expenses from income. And if you're in the positive, you're doing good. If you are in the negative, you may want to make adjustments to your budget. Let's say you have your normal monthly expenses, but you also have the following college expenses that you pay twice a year. You pay $3,500 for tuition each semester, so that happens twice. $750 in student fees each semester, again, happening twice, and $800 for textbooks each semester. How should you handle these expenses in computing your monthly budget? Well, we know that each of these happen 2 times a year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 times the 3,500 plus the 750 plus the 800 and figure out how much I spend in a year, which is $10,100. We would then take that $10,100 that we spend for the entire year and divide that by 12 to figure out how much on average we're spending per month. So 10,100 divided by 12 is about $842. So if I was then calculating my monthly expenses, I would put in $850 per month as my college expenses. Let's determine this person's net cash flow. And we are going to assume anytime they say weeks, we're going to assume that there are 4 weeks in 1 month. Our goal is, again, to figure out monthly cash flow. So we want everything to be in terms of months. So my income here, my part-time job is $650 a month. So that's good. My college fund for my grandparents is $400 a month. And then there's a scholarship of $6,000 a year. So I need to change this one. $6,000 per year. Again, we're turning it into months. So 1 year is 12 months. So we're going to divide that by 12. And then this value is going to be $500 per month. And then what I can do is I can sum all of these monthly values in my income. So I've got 650 plus 400 plus 500 gives me an income of $1,550 per month. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my expenses over here. Rent is $500 a month, so that one's good. Groceries are $60 per week. So I need to then times that by 4 to get my monthly expenses. 60 times 4 is going to give me $240 that I spend on groceries per month. I then have tuition and fees, which is $3,600 twice a year. So $3,600 means I pay that every 6 months. So I'm going to take that divided by 6 to figure out how much I'm spending per month. So I take $3,600 divided by 6, that's $600 per month. And then incidentals are my whatever other things that I spend. I'm estimating $120 per week. So I need to get that to months. So I'm going to times by 4. 120 times 4 is $480 per month. Now, just looking at these, it looks like I'm spending more than I am making, but let's verify to be safe. So we have $500 plus $240 plus $600 plus $480. And if you add all of those together, you're going to get $1,820 that you are spending a month. The final step is to subtract income minus expenses. So $1,550 minus $1,820 I get negative $270. That means every month I am spending $270 more than I am making. So clearly, I am not doing very well if this was my situation. Here's another example that we're going to find the monthly net cash flow. Part-time job is $1,200 per month. Okay, so that one's good to go. It's in months. Student loan is $7,000 per year. So I need to take this value and divide by 12 to figure out how much I'm getting per month. So 7,000 divided by 12 is $583.33 per month. I also get a scholarship of $8,000 a year. Well, $8,000 has to be divided by 12 to find out how much I'm making per month. And if I do that, I get $666.67. So my income here is going to be $1,200 from my job, $583.33 from my loan, and $666.67 from my scholarship, for a grand total of $2,450 that I'm making each month. Now, let's go to our expenses. We have rent, which is $600 a month, so that's already in months. Groceries is $70 a week. I'm going to times that by 4 to figure out how much my total is per month, and I get $280 per month on groceries. Tuition, I pay $7,500 per year. So I need to divide that by 12 to figure out how much that is per month. That's going to give you $625 per month. Health insurance is $40 per month. Entertainment, $200 per month. And my phone is $65 per month. Everything is now in terms of months, so I'm going to add them together. 600, 280, 625, 40, 265, or a grand total here of $1,810. Then the last step is to take income minus expenses, so $2,450 minus $1,810 gives me $640 that I am positive, means I am banking $640 per month into maybe my checking account or savings account. Given that you are all currently enrolled in this class, you probably had to think about something like this. Across all institutions, the average cost of a 3-credit college class is approximately $1,500. Suppose that between class time, commute time, and study time, the average class requires about 10 hours per week of your time. Assuming that you could have a job paying $15 per hour, what is the net cost of the class compared to working? And is it a worthwhile expense? So I do just want to give you a little tidbit here. Usually a 3-credit hour class requires anywhere from 3 to 9 hours of work outside of the class a week. So when they're saying here about 10 hours per week, that is within that frame of reference. So if we base this on a typical college semester lasting about 14 weeks, I know at Governor's State, usually in fall and spring, it's 15 weeks. Summer is 13 weeks. So average those two together, 14 weeks. So you will lose work wages that you could have earned during that time. We've got 14 weeks times 10 hours per week times $15 per hour that I could have been earning. I could have earned $2,100 if I had that part-time job. You would also have to add the $1,500 that the cost of the class is. So that then result would be $3,600 would be our cost of taking this class. How much income I would lose plus that $1,500 course fee, I would lose $3,600 per course. Now, whether this expense is worthwhile is going to be subjective. If you could, if you're a very, very tight budget and you could have used that money in another way, you may hold off on those college classes. But you also have to remember that those that complete college on average are going to earn more money in the long run than someone who doesn't. So part of it may just depend on your life circumstance where you are right now, but it's always a good thing to analyze the cost and benefit of anything that you're doing financially. The following is a graph that represents the average spending patterns by people in the United States based on their age. So we have food, housing, clothing, transportation, healthcare, entertainment, charity donations, and personal insurance or retirement funds. And the red bars represent the people that are under 35. That blue bar in the middle represents 35 to 64. And that kind of tan bar represents 65 and older. On the next slide, we're going to ask and answer some questions related to spending and if they are around that normal average or not. So a few of the ones we're going to ask are about a 30-year-old and their rent. So if I look at housing is rent. 30 years old is going to be this red category. So based on this graphic, I'm above 30%, maybe 33%. So I'm going to write that reference value so we can refer back to it in the next slide. Next one is a college student and their income for food. So college student is again going to be that red group for food. If I look here, maybe, let's see, that's 10, this is 15. So I'm thinking maybe 14%. And then the last question we're going to look at is retired couple and their health care. So retired couple is the tan, because you're usually over 65 if you retire. And if we look at this tan bar here, I'm thinking maybe that's around 12%. All right, so I'm going to carry those values on to our next slide and we're going to answer some questions. All right, so we have 33%, 14%, and 12%. So let's go through these questions here. If a 30-year-old has a monthly salary of $3,600 and spends $900 on rent, is this above, below, or at the national average? Well, they're spending $900 out of $3,600, and I want to times that by 100 to turn it into a percent. So if I take 900 divided by 3,600 times by 100, I get 25%. On average, according to our graph, it's 33%. So this person is below the average. Next question. If you as a college student have a monthly income of $2,200, how much should you allocate for food? Well, from the graph, we said 14% should be food. So 14% is 0.14 that we're going to times by that 2,200. And I get $308 when I do that. So $308 a month is what you should put aside for food. And then the last question here. A retired couple earning $5,200 spends $800 on healthcare. Is this above, below, or at the national average? All right, well, they spend $800 out of $5,200. And I'm going to times that by 100 to turn it into a percent. So if I do that, I get 15%. And based on our graph, we said they spend on average 12% of their income. So it looks like this couple is slightly above what the national average would be. Another decision that prospective college students have is deciding where they're going to go, whether that's in-state or out of state. So let's say you have the choice between going to an in-state college where you will pay $4,000 per year for tuition. And the out-of-state tuition, I'm gonna pick a different color here, is $6,500 per year. So out of state is $6,500 per year. And in-state is $4,000 per year. The cost of living, though, is much higher at the in-state college, and you would pay $700 per month in rent. $700 per month compared to $450 per month at the other college. Assuming all other factors are equal, which would be the less expensive choice based on the 12-month or year cost? Well, I need to turn my monthly rent into a yearly value. So 450, I'm going to times that by 12. And if I do that, you will get $5,400 for rent. So if I add that rent and my tuition, grand total here is $11,900 per year just to attend college at the out-of-state school. Then we'll do the same thing with the in-state school. So $700 per month times 12 months means I'm going to spend $8,400 on rent, which I want to add to that tuition. It's going to give me $12,400. So based on this, it is looking like the out-of-state is actually a better financial decision by, let's see, a difference of $500. Another way that we spend money monthly or yearly is in insurance. There are a few key terms when talking about insurance. The premium is the amount you're going to pay to purchase the policy, and usually these are paid once or twice a year, unless you would have it through your employer, and then those values just get taken out of your check. A deductible is the amount you are personally responsible for before the insurance company is going to pay. And a copayment is going to apply to certain services that when you go use them, that is the amount that you are going to pay to use that service. Suppose you have an accident and end up in the emergency room receiving a $7,000 bill for your treatment. Fortunately, you have health insurance, but your policy has a $1,000 annual deductible, a $250 copayment for emergency room visits, and then pays 80% of the remaining balance. How much will you pay out of pocket for the emergency room visit? Assume that you haven't had any other medical bills previously. Well, our solution is going to have three parts, which we will show on the next slide. Part one is the $1,000 deductible. This is money that you must pay in order for the insurance company to then start covering your added expenses. Since you have not had any medical procedures prior to this, you will have to pay that full $1,000. You also have to pay your $250 copay. So that's step two. Now, the third part then is based on that whole, the insurance company will pay 80% of what's left. So let's figure out, we've already spent $1,250. We've already paid that much. The total bill was $7,000. So if we subtract 7,000 minus 1,250, the remaining balance is 5,750. If insurance is going to pay 80% of that, you only have to pay 20%. 20% is 0.20 times that balance, 5,750, which is $1,150. So in total, you pay your deductible, your copay, and 20% of the remaining balance, or $2,400. So having the insurance, you only had to pay $2,400. If you did not have insurance, you would have had to pay that $7,000 bill all by yourself. Here's another example related to car insurance. Assume your automobile insurance policy has a semi annual or twice a year premium of $650 and carries a $1,000 annual deductible. In one particular unfortunate year, you have collision repair bills of $1,120 and $1,660. What will be your total out of pocket expense for insurance and repairs? So, working with this, you're going to pay $650 twice a year. So $650 for the first half, $650 for the second half. And then your deductible is $1,000. You have clearly bills over $1,000, but the max that you are going to pay is $1,000. Everything else will be covered by your insurance. So if I add these two together, I spent $2,300 on my insurance and my repairs. Now, if you did not have insurance, this one here, you don't have any monthly premiums. You're not paying the $650. All you would have to do is pay for these bills by yourself. So $1,120 and $1,660 in total, $2,780. So in this situation, you spent more not having that insurance. Healthcare. Assume that you have a relatively simple healthcare plan with the following: an annual deductible of $500, and insurance will pay 100% of all costs after your deductible and copays. Office visits have a $25 copay. Emergency rooms have a $200 copay. Surgical operations have a $1,000 copay, and you pay $350 a month for this insurance. We want to determine your healthcare expenses with the insurance policy and your healthcare expenses if you don't have the insurance policy. So I'm going to start with B because that one's easier. Figuring out how much you would pay without insurance is just summing these values here. So I would sum 100, 580, 100, 6,500, 100, and 840. This is a total of $8,220. Now, using the insurance, we're going to have to break this down. So we have to pay $350 per month. So I need to figure out how much I'm paying total. Well, 350 times 12 is $4,200. So I have to pay that $4,200. Now, all of these medical costs here are clearly over my deductible of $500. So here's my premium. I am then going to pay my deductible. Now I need to figure out how much I'm going to pay for each of these other things here. So an office visit has a copay of $25. So this is now $25. Emergency room has a copay of $200. Office visit is a copay of $25. Surgery has a copay of $1,000. Office visit is $25 and emergency room is $200. So I have my premium, my deductible, and then my copays. So premium, deductible, and then copays. So for this one, I have to add all those together. So 4,200 plus 500 plus all of these values here is going to give me $6,175. Again, another example where having that insurance was better than not having that insurance. Just some final thoughts of how you can have good financial goals is make sure that you understand your budget and that your budget always allows for savings, that you are always putting money into savings, and that we learn about the savings accounts and you pick the right one for you. You also want to make sure you understand the basic math of loans, understand how taxes are computed and how they're going to affect your decisions. and also about the federal budget. What is the government doing that is going to impact your personal finances? And we will see some of these things in the upcoming sections.